Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so delighted to welcome everyone to our second Foundation Swarovski in Conversation Talk. This program addresses economic, environmental, and social challenges faced by society and our world. With the contribution of experts from the fields of academia, philanthropy, and the creative industries, each session will examine, discuss, and raise awareness around these themes. So today, I'm delighted to welcome our guests, Burak Cakmak, Mimma Viglezio, and Kevin Germanier. Burak now is based in London and currently the CEO of the Saudi Arabia Fashion Commission. From 2015 to 2020, Burak was the Dean of the Fashion Department at Parsons School of Design in New York City, and he has held various leadership and board positions in education and sustainability. And I'm incredibly proud to mention that Burak worked with me. I had the honor to have Burak on my team in London, where he set up the Swarovski Sustainability Department, which truly has opened a whole new chapter and dimension for Swarovski. And Burak, thank you. You've really set us up on a very good start. And Mimma Viglezio is also based in London. She is a creative consultant, editor, and broadcaster, and she has led communications for brands such as Bulgari, Louis Vuitton, and the Gucci Group. Mimma, I'm very proud to say, is a trustee of the Swarovski Foundation, and she's also an advisor for the Fund of Global Human Rights, and she's a member of the Women for Women UK Leadership Committee. And Kevin, our favorite designer in Paris, he is the award-winning founder and president and creative director of Kevin Germanier. It has been my honor and pleasure to have worked with Kevin over the past few years as he has set out to make a mark in the fashion industry, demonstrating that sustainable practices can go hand in hand with beauty and glamour. So together, I would like to explore the theme of sustainability in fashion from the point of view of the creatives of the future and education systems and the industry's ability to foster further innovation. The Swarovski Foundation is committed to the growth of young designers and sustainable fashion industry practices with partners such as Central St. Martin's and Nest. And together, the global fashion industry must uphold the values of responsibility, transparency, inclusion, and accountability from a human rights and environmental point of view. So universities, coalitions, and brands are in the position of tremendous influence to promote knowledge sharing and strengthening synergies between students and the industries. And I really hope that this session will provide insight to the students looking to start a career in sustainable design and offer ideas for collective action for those of us committed to conscious design and making this world a better place. So I would like to start by asking a question to Burak as a mentor and Mimma as an advisor in terms of the young generations. They're more engaged than ever in shaping widespread global change. In your experience in academia and mentorship, how has this vision and mindset been adopted by young designers?
First of all, thank you for having us here. And it has been an amazing journey working together, both at Swarovski, but also with all of the other brands in the sustainability journey. And I must admit, after 2 decades of being in this space, it's incredible to see where the world is. So the mindset is very different. Expectation, not only of the young generation, but also consumer is different most of the world. And we are seeing that there's a willingness to be a much more of an activist around issues around climate change, sustainability for most of the young generation that's going into school, regardless of what degree they're studying. But also it's quite impressive to see, especially the creatives, that they tend to be much more sensitive to what's happening around them in the world anyways, because they take their inspiration from what they see. As a result, as a creative, you're recognizing the challenges the world is facing and using that as a way of engaging with design. And naturally, it's leading to a thinking where they want to build new business models that are more sustainable, more innovative, and they don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. And through the mentorship journey and engaging in the schools, we've seen that first and foremost, the schools have to catch up with the demand from the young generation that was coming into the classes. When I was at Parsons, even at the beginning of the time I was there 5 years ago, it was clear that not all the curriculum included content that they desired to know about. So we had to do a lot of catching up and update. And this is turning into a moment where it's all about lifelong learning. because ultimately the world is shifting very quickly with everything that's happening around us. Mm-hmm. So young generation leading the way in demanding what it needs to look like in the future. And it's our job in key positions around the world, especially for the fashion industry, to understand how are we upgrading that knowledge and supporting them in thinking in new ways and enabling the system to be much more responsible, sustainable, and reactive to the needs of the society.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and in a sense that you're in a superposition, or you were in a superposition from the educational institution, because you can very instantly implement change or the new ways of thinking and learning.
Yeah, and the exciting part of that is that you know that the 4-year, 2-year you spend with them is going to pay back the minute they graduate. And mm-hmm. It's such a pleasure to be able to see them going into business and be a change agent. One of the key things that we were really keen to focus on was to push for the idea that designer is not just creating collections. Designer is more than anything a creative thinker, and they're a critical thinker. How do they use their ways of thinking creatively to bring solutions to the industry that they're passionate about? Mm-hmm. And individuals like Kevin building their businesses are basically having the opportunity to change that game a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Great. Mimma, what are your thoughts?
It's, I mean, whatever I just heard, it's very true. My experience is more with people that have started companies already. So they're young, they're a little bit like Kevin. So they're young designer, but they have companies that are not yet completely established, but already have a voice. And I have chosen, when I left my corporate life, to only work for things that I believed could make a change and could have an impact. Because one thing that, Nadja, you said in your introduction, and I think it's not to be forgotten, is that sustainable, it's not only the environment, but it's also, you're right, it's also a sort of engagement towards those that have less, or, you know, we know what it means, human rights in general. So that's very important. So I believe that the very big difference between the big established brands, the big group, and the new designer is that the big group, they have realized that they have to adapt to a more sustainable way of doing business because the customers, they wouldn't want anything more, and because of the PR stance that goes around it. So being genuine or not, I don't care, but they have to do it. And they have the means to change the system. The smaller young designer, young brand upcoming, they do it because they come out of schools, they taught them that, or because that's what the new generation believes in. And I love that, and I love the fact that they come up with ideas of upcycling, but not do-it-yourself upcycling, couture upcycle, with ideas of innovation in material, biofabricate. Probably that's a little bit too expensive for them yet, but I mean, various innovation in material. And I remember Burak and I worked together before it was cool. We were going to see London College of Fashion and you know, and launching awards for people that were coming up with ideas in that. So there are many, I mean, I don't want to take this over, but we could talk for hours about all the many different aspects that means that your brand is sustainable. I'm thinking about Bethany Williams. She's less known for what is actually sustainable in the garments that she proposes, but who makes them, or what she gives back to who makes them. So, you know, there's a social aspect in her, intrinsic in her company, and people still say, oh, but it's not sustainable in a financial way, it's not scalable. And I'm like, no, I fight. I'm like, you can't say that. That's the only solution that we have for the future. So, you know, I can give examples of people I work with, but I think people like Kevin, and I'm very keen in hearing what you have to say, they come up with ideas that are not only linked to fashion, but also to the way of doing business in fashion. And as we all know, fashion is a huge industry, but especially it has a huge platform. So it can change the mentality of the customer who are still going to Primark and buying jeans that are less expensive than a coffee, which I think it's totally unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. And I have further questions to link into your comments, Mimma, but I just wanted to ask Kevin, from your point of view, you were a student at Central St. Martin's, and now you're a young and innovative designer. What was it that inspired you to really embrace the sustainability practices?
Well, I'm gonna say maybe something controversial, but I never found myself, I never labeled myself as a sustainable designer, because for me, the reason why I was upcycling bed sheets in the first place was because I was broke. I was in Switzerland and moved to London. CSM is very expensive. I didn't have enough money to go buy white cotton from that store, so I was going to Brick Lane, and I was finding that I can get 5 bed sheets for £2. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna do that. And it's funny because now sustainability is like, I hate saying that, it's not a trend. Since
Exactly.
when saving the world is a trend? And people have been doing that way before us. Yes,
Hmm.
we're the new generation, but if you think like Vivienne Westwood, Stella McCartney, Ursula De Castro, they all been doing that, but people were like rolling their eyes. And to be honest with you, when I applied to the Redress Design Award, which is a sustainable award. At that time, I was a student at CSM, and my tutor, no offense to them, they were not, they were like, ah, sustainable award, this is weird. And my peers were rolling their eyes. They were like, why are you upcycling if you can just go to the store and buy it? Not everyone, I'm being a little bit harsh, but just to tell you that in 5 years, now sustainability is trendy. And
Yeah.
I genuinely work with what I found. This is how I feel the most creative, is when I'm hunting for trash.
Yeah.
As unglamorous as it sounds, this is how I personally feel the best, and I would never ever consider producing a product without it being sustainable. It's just
Mm.
how I perceive building a business.
Yeah. And I think that's so important for people to know and understand. You know, you were in this compromising situation, you came up with a creative solution. But, you know, a person who did exactly that was also Alexander McQueen. I just remember stories of him walking the beach of Brighton and picking up plastic pieces, which he then eventually used as paillettes in his dresses, or fabrics from old furniture that he found on the beach. Nobody ever would have known. And I
Mm.
have to say hat off to you and to your creative vision of how materials can be implemented. And it must have been hard
I
to be in
think,
a situation.
oh, sorry.
No, no, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just wanted also to say something that I think it's very important, especially at Germany, and also links our story to Swarovski, is that I want to show that sustainability can be luxurious, glamorous, feminine, desirable. It's not because you talk about sustainability that it has to look like a hippie thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's in people's minds such a misconception of what a sustainable brand should look like. And I'm trying to just break all those stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit the mixing sustainability with ethnicity, you know, and I worked with Stella for a few years, and she used to say that it sustainable doesn't mean ugly, you know, and that was the problem, that people thought that if it was sustainable, it couldn't be luxurious. But now the possibilities are endless, and so there's no excuses.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at how creativity became a real business and the implications of that, the reality is, you know, creativity in its own is a beautiful thing. We all appreciate it. But the push for turning it into a big business, really push for looking for efficiencies without contextualizing the impact of that process, led to having a lot of negative impacts. It
Yeah.
took us several decades to recognize that. Obviously, you know, mid 20th century, pret-a-porter became the big deal. It was a great idea that we were able to all dress in a nice way, right? We made it accessible, it democratized fashion, but we didn't think about the impact of that democratization process. And the truth is, it took quite a long time to understand that in that journey to provide products in a cheaper, faster way, we are actually damaging a lot of things, including the creative process as well. It took even a toll to creative designers. Everybody in this talk is aware of that. And I think now we are turning that wheel back to say that it's great that it's accessible to everybody, but we forgot what is the impact on the overall psychology of people, the designers, the humanity, but also our environment. And how are we gonna now fix that? So I think it's a great moment. I don't want to blame anybody in the past 5 decades that they've done something right or wrong. It's more about now that we are aware, let's all work together. And the beauty of young generation really taking this on board is an indication that they're going to seek for those solutions. And now, because the fashion industry is a big business, there is enough investment in going every aspect, just like what you were saying, Mimma, from biomaterials that are created in the labs to new processes for recycling. I've seen an incredible innovations around carbon capture that immediately turns it into fabric without any emissions, basically a fabric from air with no emission. I mean, now, today, it's possible. So when you see this level of innovation happening and the push for circularity in the industry, it's clear that we are moving into a new direction where, and one benefit from COVID as well, now the cycles don't mean anything in the traditional sense as well. So there's no season left. We killed everything. So we're creating a whole new world for fashion industry and beyond around creating our own cycles, doing it in new ways with innovation and sustainability. And we will see a lot more new ideas to come forward. So I'm quite hopeful to see what change is going to happen. But it was also predictable, where we ended, because it was the idea that let me make it more efficient without understanding the impact of that context.
I don't know if Nadja, if I can talk, or if you had another question in mind. Can I say something?
No, of course, go for it.
I love being optimistic and positive, and whatever you just said, Burak, it's so true. However, as you know, I am a product of big corporations that I left only 10 years ago, and I'm not convinced that until the power is so, and here again, I'm going to make people hate me, but until the power is still so, in there, unless they really change not only the ways, but the system. Because, there's still a lot of waste. People are saying, oh, but we produce products that are forever because they're expensive and beautiful. Yeah, it's true, but you still do shows with 85 looks and 1,000 collections a year, and all of that is called anti-sustainable, no matter how sustainable you want to seem. So what I'm saying is that my appeal is to the big brands that I know and know me well, just you have to change the thing, because as I said, I only believe in this young generation that are genuinely towards changing this. But until the monopoly is and the money is there, the thing will not really change.
I'm gonna jump on that. I'm gonna just say, Mimma, they're just waiting for me to go there.
Yes. Lead the way.
There we go. I always say that. No, but I always say exactly what you said. If we can change it, tiny designers compared to the huge ones, but there's also huge, amazing support like Swarovski. And I don't say that because Nadja, you're here, but you are doing the best that you can to help us, the smaller one. But I agree with you. I always say, because I used to be a junior designer at Louis Vuitton, I've seen it from the inside, and I understand that it takes a lot of time, it's a lot of hierarchy, millions of emails, a lot of money involved. However, as long as those big names will not change it, then I just wanted to say I totally agree with you. But on the brighter side, they're just waiting for me to go there. So
good. But I have to be honest, and again, since I've been there many years, it's not easy to change a system completely when you're big. It's much easier to start from zero with a different system than changing the machine, as you were saying, not only the hierarchy, but the machine, the money involved, the responsibilities. But you can. You can, step by step, like Stella has always said, and now there was a time 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago where if you wanted organic cotton, and I'm not sure that's the solution, but let's say organic cotton, there wasn't enough quantity to do whatever you wanted. Now all of that, it's not an excuse anymore. Now and also the mountains of that stock everywhere that can be reused, and so there's no excuses,
Oh,
Yeah.
so 1/4 of the things that are produced are not being used.
Yeah.
They go straight into the waste. And that's so shocking. And I can not help but think, if the general public or the customer would know about that, they would have absolutely different buying decisions. But the question is, how can we get rid of the pressure of having to buy new clothes and be on trend and be stylish? How can that all change within the mind of the consumer?
I mean, part of it is about the business models, right? Because it doesn't have to be even just a sustainability conversation, because technically that stock is waste, lost money. And if you produce and didn't sell, you're losing money. So ultimately, there's an incentive to fix that. And what's quite interesting, because I have been also engaged in this digital fashion sphere, and there's so much innovation happening. There's now new technologies that basically narrows that conversation between the end user and the designer. So that conversation is becoming closer and closer, that there may be a world, there's much more of mass customization, which allows on-demand production. With the automation of the processes, localization, it won't work for every fashion business. But I think for products that are at scale, for basics, there's no reason for us to kind of do parts of it in 10 different countries and ship it all over the world. We're getting to a place where you can potentially recycle the same material into new yarn in each country locally and produce it on demand and send it. When it's true fashion in the way we understand it, obviously there is a place for that, but it's done at a scale that's not as much impactful, and that can also be done in a much more couture way as well. So that balance will allow a big shift in the industry, I think.
So is this something, for example, that was taught in one of your classes at Parsons?
I mean, clearly we're trying to showcase all of this innovation that's happening. I mean, that's the other thing that I have been working for the past 6 months building around what is that new digital fashion supply chain? And how do you not create any physical samples and be able to produce something? For a lot of creatives, I understand the challenges of that, because everybody likes the touch and the feel and being able to see it in person. But there is a shift in the world. And also the other part is, can we allow customers to enjoy the satisfaction of fashion partially in the digital realm, so that maybe they're buying less products, but they're able to engage with it, especially now we're seeing the young generation in gaming in other places. There's quite a lot of money being spent on fashion digital products that have never been produced. And that has always need to be coupled with the fashion industry, no question, because the real fashion is creating that demand and interest, but that can allow us not to sell as much and allow us to engage in a different way as well.
That's so interesting. On that note, I mean, I've seen a lot from coming out of New York, the D2C, designer to consumer concept through the digitization, which is really fantastic. And it seems also that there's greater inclusivity to the general public, because in the past, these shows were so exclusive just to the editors and the buyers, but now the general public can get that first look and feel. Kevin, how is that? Does that apply to you? How is it in Paris? How will it be in Paris during Fashion Week? And how are you interacting with your consumer? And then I have another question to all of you. Do you think there's a difference in the interaction between the young consumer who is very digitally savvy versus the more mature consumer that might not be so versatile with the use of their cell phones or computers?
To answer the first question, I would say I always talk about transparency, and even if I do something wrong, it's okay. I think it's more mature to say, hey, I think I did this wrong, than to be like, no, it's because no,
it's a double
just
prop. You've lied. You made the mistake and you're lying about it.
Allow room for mistakes, because as a new designer, you will not be perfect. And as hard as it is for me to say this, because I'm Swiss and I've been raised to be that, perfect person, natural, I'll make mistake. However, if I say, hey, I think this is not good, and then we start a conversation. But I just want to say also something like the way that people interact now, it's Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I post a picture of Lady Gaga wearing Germanier. I have some likes and some congratulations. I post a picture of my grandma knitting in my Swiss room, it blows my Instagram. Who is she? Oh my God, she's 92, amazing, da da da. And to me, I didn't realize, because this is my reality, this is my story, and this is my everyday life. Every day I talk to my grandma and we talk about knits. However, from someone from America, it could be from Korea, from Australia, this is fascinating to know. Oh my God, you know, there's a transparency. For me is the new lux. And I've started in January a YouTube channel where it's the same background. And I just explain what we do. I present who we are working with. I'm having discussion with buyers, with journalists, with stylists that are supporting us. And just to show how it is, because there's also a misconception about you work in fashion, therefore you are not so nice person. Let's put it that way. But actually, our industry is full of genius and smart person. So, you know, I really want to showcase that too. Yes, I'm a designer, but at the end of the day, now I'm more of a CEO. And I think I wish when I was a student, someone would be like, hey, this is how you produce, this is how you source, this is how you do, and learn from my mistake. And I've been really blessed to be surrounded by great mentors. But you know, those medias really help to connect with the customer, for sure.
Well, it's amazing. Would you be prepared to be a mentor to the next generation, which is so close to you? You're so young. You know, you've done.
I'm not that young anymore. I'm not that young anymore, but sure.
You are an incredible role model, certainly to that new generation. You know, you've led the way. You've been amazing. But would you be, and that's another thing, I think, the stigma of the fashion industry, right? There used to be so much competition among the fashion designers. I think your generation is more open-minded, and it really seems like, you know, they're embracing the community of the fashion industry. There seems to be more support for each other.
It's all about collaboration. I think you just, let's point that out. The new designers is not just me anymore. You'll go on my Instagram, it's not my face. I'm not a god creating garments. I'm a designer and I work with people, and the customer wants to see those people. Of course, they like to see the designer, but not, you know, when it was like a Tom Ford for Gucci, like this idea of this god. Of course, they are genius, don't get me wrong, but I think it's not relevant to our current situation right now. And collaboration is the key. If someone is doing better trousers than I do, why not just use my technique of beads with their trousers, and the product's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
I think that's one of the biggest changes that are happening. Collaboration is what it is today. The designers are friends with each other, not only asking help to each other. They're friends. They have dinners, and when we could have dinners and drinks. But I mean, all the designers I work with, they introduce me to the next one. They are friends, and they don't hold their mentors or their secrets. They share, and that's something in your culture that, Nadja, as you said, we grew up in a culture where everything was secret, everything was competing, etc., etc. And the other very important thing that you said that to me shows the change that is happening is about the photo of your grandmother that blew up your Instagram. That's going to be essential, because the brand now have to follow the people, and not, like you said, you know, my example is always Tom Ford that was dictating down what we will want to wear that we didn't even know. That's not there anymore. I mean, fashion is adapting to what's happening in the street. Not completely, and don't take me wrong, I'm not taking away creativity from anybody, and I still see amazing ideas. But the influence of the street today exists. And hence, grandmother, people are fed up. I mean, fed up. They don't want to only say celebrities, but they see your real soul, your older, funny, trendy grandmother who's knitting your fashion, and that seems superficial, but those are very important points. Those are the things that will change the system. They will change the narrative. They will change the trendy word, the zeitgeist, you know, and everything then it's blended in with sustainability and social responsibility and human rights. So I believe that those two examples that you gave, Kevin, are essential to understand what's happening, not what has already happened.
I think you cannot fake authenticity because it's just genuinely how I work. And I think that's what people want to see. If I hire a fake grandma, they will know it's not mine. You know what I mean? It's really like,
energy.
Just being authentic.
But Kevin, you're lucky that you're in a generation that doesn't have to face the challenges of the previous, because technology has been an equalizer. So now you have the same access as long as you can raise your voice to the global audience. It doesn't matter where they are. In the past, it was basically a bottleneck of the media that controlled all that messaging. And obviously they paid attention to the number of people they can talk to. Now the world is your oyster. Anybody who wants to raise their voice is raising it. And ultimately your authenticity is what's gonna really make you stand out. And that's what people are gonna follow. And more than anything, we were trying to teach it at Parsons as well. A creative is creative in every sense, including managing your brand, your image, your product. So it's not just about the product. And maybe that's a good thing, because ultimately we cannot only focus on the product and produce more of it and sell it. We need to work on this full creative circle and see how your inspiration can highlight what that lifestyle can look like. And some of it is around conversations, things you care about, what are the values you care, the intangibles, the things that doesn't cost money, and engage people in these conversations. And that's probably the biggest challenge I see for the large brands going forward. They're trying to acquire that through collaboration. Yes, it's the world of collaboration. I was shocked at Parsons that we would have all the large, well-known brands to do a collaboration every other month with an unknown designer that's just coming out of school, because they are seeking that authenticity and they recognize that this is their biggest challenge into the future.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious how they're going to change, but in the meantime, I think there's more opportunity for people like you.
Yeah, Nadia, you were asking about how we will show during Paris Fashion Week, and I think you just say something that is true. We are lucky in the fact that there's still this system of you're part of the Fashion Week, of the official calendar. I'm lucky enough that I'm part of the official calendar, but as a newcomer, maybe you don't know the person, you didn't apply on time. Anyway, social media allow you to show your work, your art, and your story, and you can reach people from all around the world, which I think, yes, we're lucky, because that's just the way I've always worked. I've never faced a situation where, oh, okay, I will only show to those people because those people are in Paris. I never worked that way. I can show to everyone all around the world. We can do Zoom meeting with buyers from America. Then we have another buyer from Japan, you know? So I acknowledge that we are lucky for that. That's it's one good thing from all this digital world we're living in.
Well, lucky because you can get known, as you say, and we are in a pandemic, and here we are talking to each other from different countries. However, it's also more difficult in another way. The cancel culture, the fact that sometimes you're destroyed for. I mean, most of the time it's true, and thank God. But sometimes you can be attacked viciously for things that maybe were not explained that way. So it is lucky in a way, and that's probably the biggest part, but it can be also more dangerous. But on the other hand, this digital age is holding to account people and brands. So as I don't know if it was Burak or you were saying, you can lie, you can fake, as you were saying, you can fake, you're either genuine or you're not. But to put yourself out that much and that globally can also be counterproductive or dangerous. So it is not only luck, there's also merit in what you will achieve.
So Burak, do you think, just from an academia point of view, that element that Kevin just addressed will be addressed in the schools, showing the designers how they can prepare themselves to show, to prepare, to sell?
I think it's been quite a rough patch, especially the past 12 months for academia. I mean, you have children as well, and you're for sure experiencing it yourself, although they're not in the university age. But
I have no problem. Easy.
But the truth is, you know, even in the past 5 years, while I was leading Parsons Fashion Schools, it was clear that there was a lot of demand and understanding what happens beyond the creative process. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard to change the academic curriculum, because especially if you're accredited by the government, there's so much regulation that goes behind it. So updating it takes at least 2 years. You know, by the time you try to update it, things have already changed, and those students moved on. and because information change, it's this continuous cycle. So I think the learning system has to evolve. Part of it can be that maybe we all need a kind of a element to top up the things that you need to know the minute you graduate, because that's the moment, whatever is happening. Like, for example, if somebody's graduating now, they should know the latest digital tools to use in design, in manufacturing, the right places for having retail showrooms, engagements. I mean, even this past 12 months, everything shifted to digital, right? This never happened before. You were never having a conversation with a showroom or a buyer digitally over Zoom. So all these realities will evolve when things open up as well. So I think what we need is that additional top-up that's available either within each institution or something that's outside available that's easy to access, hopefully supported by the fashion councils and others, so that it's as cheap as possible or ideally free, so the network comes together and makes this available so everybody to understand what's happening at that moment. Because you know, you don't also want to lose the aspects of creative process and the learning that goes with that, because the beauty of going to school, we've seen many designers become designers without going to school, but at the same time, if you're able to afford and lucky enough to spend 4 years in a university to study design, that's your time to dream big, right? That's not just about worrying about business, it's about being creative. And that builds their identity, who they are, and really shapes their visual language. And most of the time, if they haven't gone through that journey, they lack that element. And we don't want to lose that either. So we need to find that balance where we don't overwhelm it with too much business information at the beginning. But as they go through the creative journey and shape who they are, we are able to provide the knowledge they need as they're coming up. And hopefully they have a now sense of, do I want to be in business working for somebody else, or do I want to create my own business? Or do I want to join another part of the value chain as well? It doesn't have to be just a design role. There are many opportunities now to work across the full value chain of the industry.
Mm-hmm. And then
more and more now, like Kevin was saying before, I'm also the CEO of my brand. You know, now they thanks to the digital era, they come up and they come up with brands, and they're 2 people for 5 years until they reach a few million. So they do everything. So I believe that what you just said, Burak, is so essential, because I do teach sometimes. I'm never professor for the whole year, but I'm invited to, you know, give classes in masters, and they are hungry to know what actually does happen once you're there in the brands or in the, you know, in the business. And unfortunately, I can't mention the brand because I signed an NDA and it happened the other day. It will be public soon, but I was in a Zoom like this that will be published with a big brand that used some students at Central St. Martin's to renew their product anyway. And we were talking, the judges, with the winners, and what each of them said, their favorite bits when they visited the brand where they produce and where they sell, and they learned all the process, and they understood why one of their designs had to be adapted because it couldn't be worn or produced, or it would have been too costly. They were like, oh, I'm creative, but no, I mean, if there's like 1,000 crystals instead of 5, then we have to sell it for too much money. So, you know, all things that you guys know, but all of them, 5, they all of them said it. And so I believe that more than ever today, please professors teach them about reality as well, because they are creative and they will be creative naturally, but they have to succeed. And today, most of the time, they succeed on their own.
Mm-hmm.
I literally have the goosebump when you say that, because I don't think there is a school for CEOs. I don't think there is. The best school is just to go there and you learn on the slot, and you're gonna make mistake, but you literally just confirm what I just said earlier. When you explain why you can do something, you understand, and actually you are going to agree why we chose this design decision. It's not because we're brats or diva, it's because it costs or because we can produce there. And I think, once again, being transparent. But Burak, I also agree with you. I wish I knew that before, when I was at CSM, that I'm gonna learn nothing. I'm just gonna learn how to survive and find who I am, as cheesy as it sounds. Because imagine, Swiss boy, totally constipated, arrive in London, hello, that was a lot. But I wish I would have you just tell me that. We're not gonna teach you how to like produce a zip and then source da. Find yourself first, and then you can build something on top of that, because you have no DNA. There's nothing in the back. You know what I mean? You can't build on emptiness. And I only realized that maybe 2 years after I finished CSM, when a journalist said, "Oh yeah, you have such a strong eye for color," and I was like, "Oh, you know what? Actually, I do. I never realized that." Because you're a student and you're like stressed by your thing. And yeah, most of the time you learn after. My first meeting, and it's funny because you're here, Nadja. The first time I had a meeting and they were like, "Okay, you're gonna meet Nadja Swarovski, blah, blah, blah." So I was like, okay, I need to do my my portfolio. I need to do my PDF file, This is not how it happened. We literally just chat with a glass of champagne, and I had to just adapt myself to that situation. And I was like, "Oh, I don't have my PDF. I don't have my portfolio. How can I impress her?" But sometimes you just learn on the go. So yeah,
and it was very impressive, because what I felt is your amazingly kind spirit, and that's what people feel when they see and wear your clothes. And so I personally believe fashion is almost like art, and the artist creates for him or herself, and the buyer or the viewer feels that energy. That's the same thing with the clothes. And I have to say, it's very ethereal. You feel that energy. You feel what goes into it. You feel the grandmother's hand. It's very human, and that's so special. I think in this day and age of overpopulation, mass production, I think it's such an anchor to have that individualism and the sense of kindness, to feel the kindness. It's very comforting.
And I guess that's one of the big differences between what fashion is and what is general garments or clothing. It's being confused all the time, because fashion is ultimately more close to an art form, and that's about the emotional connection you're creating with what you're buying. You intentionally chose it, you feel a certain way in it, it makes you look in a certain way, you're giving a message. And there are a lot of other basics we all wear, but we don't need to treat them as fashion items in the traditional sense. And those basics we will all need, because that's part of our human culture. But we need to find the way, produce them in the best way possible. Put the right material, make sure that it's recycled. There's a local circular system that manages that. And beyond that, allow for fashion to be on its own, what it is, and then celebrate in the same way, but people will keep it for the longer term, and they're not necessarily going to buy the fashion we talk about 100 times a year. They're going to maybe buy a few pieces a year that's really reflecting that. And that in itself creates a different level of value.
Yeah, totally. And then just on that note, speaking of sustainability and that transparency, Mimma, from your experience, you follow the shows very, very closely. Have you seen, Kevin is such a fantastic example of celebrating glamour, beauty, sustainability. Have you seen any other expressions or changes within fashion styles because sustainability has been implemented and embraced?
Not yet in the big shows. I mean, a little bit more in London, and I'm not saying that because I'm here and I'm biased, because I'm not even British. So but it's happening more here because this platform gives a voice more to the new, the young generation. I have seen bigger brands, like established huge brands, trying to upcycle with their own leftovers or fabrics. So like in Milan, I was reading and watching today, and most of them there, but it's always a little bit of the whole collection. It's always a little tentative. While I work with two brands, and there are two friends that are only upcycling and talk about glamour and beauty. I mean, it's spectacular what they do. So, and they refuse to produce a millimeter of fabric. And one is the LV Denim, a brand of denim here in London, the only really sustainable denim, because denim is not sustainable by definition. And Anna buys mountains of discarded jeans. She saves from 6 death jeans, and she makes amazing jeans that are selling very well. And the other one is this young guy called Duran Lantink, based in Amsterdam, who gets stocks from only luxury, so brands, or he did a beautiful collection for Browns, and he cuts up in a couture way pieces that were very expensive, but they're going to landfill, and he makes couture because everything you wear from him is unique. It can only be one. So, and it's beautiful, harder to scale, but there is a way, and if only the brands were giving him more of the stocks, that would be, but anyway, that's a different discussion. So my answer is yes, there are people here. Also inclusivity. I think about Loverboy, I think about Art School, I think about brands that believe in doing things that are changing the world. Because I was saying at the beginning, it's not only about the environment, but it's also about human treatment, about human rights. And Bethany Williams, I already mentioned, and even Molly Goddard. People don't know, but I work with Molly, and she is one of the nicest person with her teams, with her suppliers, with the people she chooses to produce with, or so I could go on and on and on. Will I see that in Paris? Kevin, help me. I don't know. There's a lot about sustainability, but then out of 120 pieces in a set that lasts 15 minutes and costed 6 million, there's probably one piece that it's upcycled. So I don't know. Beautiful fashion for sure. Sustainable, I don't know.
I need to be very careful about what I'm going to say, because this is going to be recorded for the rest of my life. However, when you were saying, because I kind of know some of them, I met them at the LVMH prize, and as you said, they're so kind, and there were no competition. It's more like, oh, you work that way. Anyway, in London, I felt like it is, and it's a fact, everybody knows, it's more rebellious than Paris. However, once again, the reason why I'm in Paris is to change that. So there you go.
Exactly. And I'm sure you'll have that fantastic impact.
Kevin, the video of Saul Nash, that was mind-blowingly important and beautiful and amazing, could it be watched in the same way in Paris? Do you know what I'm talking about? Saul Nash.
Which one? I didn't hear, sorry.
Saul Nash.
Ah, yes.
I mean, his video was, for me, just so important. And I wonder, would it go down well outside of London?
I think there is, once again, I need to choose my words in English very carefully, but I think Paris is more conservative when it comes to fashion. They will take less risks. They will take risks with us. I know personally that I am a risk for the official calendar, because I'm doing sustainable glamour, and I'm a little bit of a rebellious. Well, I'm still Swiss, so it's kind of safe. You know what I mean?
Using Swiss as a bet, and Swiss as well.
I know, but in the sense that I'm not like the London, you know what I mean? Like, they're badass. Like, think about Vivienne Westwood, Loverboy, they're all like it's intense, and I'm afraid it might be too intense for Paris Fashion Week. But how close-minded to think that way? You know what I mean? Because you should be able to express your message wherever you are.
Yeah.
But maybe that paradigm will change anyway, since things are more global versus specific to the city.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even if you look at something like LVMH Pride, it's been amazing to see the creativity coming from all over the world. I mean, that's the beauty of being connected through digital means, because as a creative, you don't feel alone, regardless of the most remote place you are in the world. You can find people that think like you and learn from them, engage with them, and that potentially you will make your way all the way to Paris, which is still where a lot of the conversation happens. And if you're lucky enough, you can also study in different places like London and New York and other places.
Right.
I think Paris, just to finish, I think Paris will take more risks with us. Like, for example, Kenneth, Tebe, or I, they will take risk in that sense. But the bigger brands, not yet.
Yeah, they need you. They need the Tebe and the Kevin, but good.
Keep shining, Kevin. So what I just wanted to say, we have some questions coming in, but before that, just one fact. So the World Economic Forum stated that without further action, the fashion industry will fail to meet the Paris Agreement's target in 2030. But I have to say, all of you have addressed things that we can implement, from innovative materials, production technologies, sourcing, fair labor. So I guess it's just a matter of really talking about it. And Kevin, as you said so many times, just be totally transparent about it, because inevitably the end consumer will appreciate that so much. And I can't help but think that, the different, organizations, from the fashion councils, but also to the government bodies, will help and support. And we'll work on the big brands. But on that note, Mimma, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Thinking about luxury fashion, and let's say for Gucci, what are the risks, but also opportunities in terms of sustainability?
Well, I'm not sure I understand if it means risk and opportunity in going totally sustainable, because I think there's more opportunity than risk, and that's why, Bizzarri has claimed that they're going to do totally sustainable show in the next 1 or 2 years. I don't remember, and then they're going to be a totally sustainable brand in the near future. So I still...
Can you explain what a totally sustainable show is? No show?
Well, exactly. I still think that there's a little bit of an oxymoron here. I think you can do a show with recycled pieces, with no electricity, with no people flying. I don't know, maybe digital, maybe, we don't know. I mean, they're very creative.
You have the digital designers, digital clothes. If you made everything digital, that would work.
Exactly. But I mean, you can, when you're we're talking about 8 or 9 billion brand here, maybe even 10 now. So it's a big moat. I mean, it's not as easy, but I think, to answer the lovely question, there are more opportunity, because you will attract more talent. Young, talented people will want to work with you much more if you do things correctly. People, young generation that are coming into money will choose you more than someone else to buy from, because you're doing things correctly. Now, do I have the solution? I would be very rich and very famous if I had all the solutions. No. But again, I believe there are solutions. And I remember about 10 or 12 years ago, I was doing a keynote speech in Switzerland, by the way, at a conference. And I was talking about the digital tsunami, and we were into it. And this lady stood up and practically insulted me, really aggressed me, say, how can you talk about digital in fashion and in luxury and da-da-da-da-da, it's not possible. And I looked at her, I will never forget. And I'm saying the same now about the Gucci and whatever. Deal with it, because there's no other way. At the time it was, you can say whatever you want, lady, but digital, it's here to stay and to revolutionize. And so sustainable practices in fashion will be the only thing. I think that your children and grandchildren one day will say, did you used to kill animals to eat and to wear a jacket or shoes? No, because it will be normal that leather is made in a lab, and it's real leather and real meat or skin, whatever you want to call it. So I'm saying there's no choice. Yeah. There's risks for sure, but if you don't take them, there will be no opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And then we have a question for all of you, kind of really tying into what you were just saying, Mimma. When do you all believe that sustainability will become the default for a brand and a business strategy? How long will that take?
Well, the quickest way to get there is obviously through regulation and standards. That's not going to happen overnight. There are attempts to aspects of it, from labeling requirements to kind of banning certain materials. So it is in that journey, but part of it is also creatives that are setting a new standard, right? So if a designer says, this is the only way I'm gonna do a brand, and I'm not interested in doing it any other way, that de facto also creates it in the right way.
Very well said. Very well said.
And then there's a question also for Kevin. So how do you think the more mature generation is responding to sustainability? Do you feel a difference?
More mature, am I understanding the question well?
The people born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe even 70s.
To be honest, I have
the non-millennial.
I have a lot of customers that are more mature because they have a sense for luxury, but they're fed up to buy wrong. I don't know how to say in English. And sometimes some people, because I open now my e-commerce, and I have some people just asking me questions, and it's true that sometimes I ask them, can I just know what made you buy us and not someone else? And they did say, well, first, I like the product. It's important. I'm buying a product that I will wear. And secondly, I learned that it was sustainable. So it made the difference between that pair of trousers or yours. I think, to be honest, it's not a generation issue because now it's everywhere. And people knew that before. It's just that we reached the point that we have no other choice to just act. I'm so fed up of all, no offense, we are doing kind of a webinar now, but all those webinars is blah, 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 blah. I need action. I'm fed up with the blah, blah. Please act. That's just what I want to say.
Mimma, that's exactly what we discussed yesterday. We all become activists, absolutely. And then Kevin.
Yeah.
Here we have one final question for Kevin. So how, from a designer, how can I start small as a student with a very small budget?
I always say, if you limit yourself by time or by money, you will never go anywhere. Just know that life is tough. And to be honest, when I left Switzerland, that was the most dramatic action I took, but you have to take risks. It doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, as long as you have a point of view. And once again, if I was rich, I would have never ever find those discarded beads, you know? I would have never ever find, I don't know, a leftover sequence, because I was not even confronted to the situation that I had to look for that. So for me, I don't want to hear any goddamn excuses about money or time. You make it work or you don't work in fashion, because it's a tough industry. Let's face it.
I want to adopt you, Kevin. You're every word is
so hopeful, you know, and that is such an empowering message for people. That the most important thing is that the talent and the vision is within you, and then of course the creativity will problem solve and make it happen.
Can I just add one word to that student? Be yourself. Don't try to do something because you see it went well, it's sold. Be real, true, genuine, be yourself. You have an idea, go for it. If your idea is a little bit this and that, just work for someone else.
You have the luxury as a student to make mistake, and I think as long as your point of view is strong, your teachers will never expect Chanel finishing. You know, you are not asked to be a seamstress. You ask to be a future thinker and to create product. So that also something I wish I knew at the time, because then I will spend more time on, you know, creating. But you know, that's the truth. Never ever a CSM tutor told me this is badly stitched. They were more like, this idea, it's rubbish, go there. You know, it was all about the idea and your message. And yeah, if I just can add that, because I think it's very important. Sometimes I felt like, oh, I don't have the technique skills to do it, but make it work. There's everything on YouTube. You can build an iPhone on YouTube by watching videos. So, you know, I'm sure you'll be fine by doing whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, being creative is also being resourceful. So you find your network and support mechanisms to make things happen. So.
Yeah. Well, Kevin for president.
Yeah.
But
I vote for you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
totally. And we are here to support you, but I know you'll be there for the next generation, and you're there for everyone to inspire them.
Thank you so much.
I think our time's up. We could go on and on and on. And I'm so grateful to see everyone. We're so far away, and it's so fantastic to at least see you all. I miss you. It's been so long. It's been a very surreal year. But thank goodness for technology to keep people connected and keep the world going and shining and sparkling and beautiful and sustainable. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.